Hello everyone, it is my pleasure to introduce our next guest speaker, Emmy Farstad. Emmy is a passionate writer, proud wife and rescue dog mom, mental health advocate, and survivor of suicidal ideation, bipolar disorder, CPTSD, and invisible physical illness. As the former copy editor of the Hudson Valley Community College's newspaper, Emmy has always held a deep love for the written word and places a strong emphasis on the importance of language and dialogue surrounding mental health and invisible illness. Emmy is also an avid animal lover with a rescued mental illness-related service animal. Whether she's spending time with her pets and chosen family, advocating as hard as possible, or crafting a meaningful piece of writing, one thing remains the same. She aims to approach everything with compassion, determination, and authenticity. Emmy, thank you so much for joining us today. You have the floor.
Hi, so my name is Emmy, and as I was starting to think about what I wanted to say today, my thought was that it's so important to me to feel seen, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't feel often enough. And so as I'm standing here with a bunch of people that I know and don't know, and I'm very grateful that a lot of people that I care and love about, or care about and love are here, I would like to let all of you know that I see you, and I think that's the most important thing that I'd like you to take away. I also feel that I'm standing here drowning in imposter syndrome, and so I would like to do a shout out to my dad, because I called him a couple days ago and said, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't feel like I'm qualified, this imposter syndrome is getting to me, and my dad said, for years and years, you have been wanting to do this is what you've been talking about, this is what you've been doing, you're the person to give this speech, so there's no way you could be an imposter because you're you. So shout out to my dad for that one. Yeah, he deserves it. So one thing that I think is really important to talk about is that, and this goes along with imposter syndrome, is, so I don't have a degree. I don't have, a career with letters after my name explaining what I do as a living, but I feel that I learned things that you cannot learn in a classroom and that no professor could ever teach. And I also believe that that is probably the hardest way to learn something, but also the most effective. And so I would like to say, if I could snap my fingers and have any career that I would like, I would love to work in, maybe be a physician's assistant in psychiatry. But right now I am where I am because it's where I'm meant to be. I certainly have challenges. As Taylor had mentioned, I have survived my own bouts with mental illness and physical illnesses. And I often say that if someone asked me if they could switch a flip and take away all of my struggles and give me a different life and say, here's what you have if you haven't struggled, I would not make the trade, because what I've been through has made me a person worth being, and that's very important to me. One thing I'd really also like to talk about and share is my own background with suicidal ideation and attempts. My last and final attempt was July 2nd of 2011. And I was at a point where a lot of things in my life were changing, and I listened earlier to Tim back there, I want to say, yep, about when, his own experience with realizing that did not want to be dead, but just didn't want to live in this reality, and that reverberated with me a lot, because that's a lot how I felt. So I was young, I was unsure, and I took a handful of pills, and before they had gone down my throat, my thought was, this is not what I want. I immediately called my husband, at the time my boyfriend, and said, we need to go to the hospital. I did something that I wish I had not done, and I have made promises I intend to keep to a lot of people that I love, and I know that even though since then I've dealt with my own relapses of suicidal ideation, it is not ever a choice I will make again, because those promises are more important to me than anything I could ever feel. And I have I don't believe it would be fair for me to put that pain on anyone else. But more so to what Tim was speaking about is that I think there's a difference between wanting to end your life and not wanting to live the life that you're living right now. And I would wager that the majority of the time, the case is the latter. And one story that I always like to share, because it resonates with me a lot, is something I read a long time ago about the Golden Gate Bridge, which is one of the most common places in the United States where people will choose to take their lives or intend to take their lives. And they have done studies about actual attempts at the Golden Gate Bridge. And of everybody that jumps, only 1% survives. But of every single person that has survived, they have asked them, 100% of them had said the second they jumped, they thought, I wish I didn't just jump. Which gives us the sad reasoning that of all the people that jumped and were not lucky to survive that jump, it is very sad to think about the fact that they probably didn't want to make that choice, but it had already been made. And I think it's really important that we talk about these things when things aren't just, when we're not in the wake of tragedy. One example I tend to use a lot is when someone like Robin Williams passes away, or when a classmate passes away, or another celebrity or someone you used to know passes away. We all have these messages of, reach out to me, I'm here if you need me, and you're not alone, and there's always someone to talk to. And then a couple days go by, a week goes by, and we don't really have those conversations anymore. And my thought process has always been, well, if we were talking about this stuff all the time, then a lot of those tragedies probably would be avoidable. So I have always said to people, I think the most important thing we can do to prevent suicide is to talk about it. So in order for us to talk about it, we just got to talk about it. Not sure what's happening with the legs, but okay, that's beautiful. Another thing I think is really important is that the way that we approach people who are dealing with not just mental illness and suicidal ideation, but really struggle of any kind, is that there are, in my eyes, there are two ways we can approach them. We can approach them with kid gloves and at arm's length, or we can approach them with open arms and a warm heart. And I think both of those honestly take the same amount of effort. And one of them is obviously a much better solution. So I wanted to end this. I decided I was going to do bullet points instead of writing something down with perfect punctuation and grammar and the words eloquently, how I would if I was writing something, since that's my background is in writing and editing. But I wanted to see if I could just give myself some bullet points, talk about some really important things, and then end it on reading something that I did write that is verbatim that I wrote. And I have not published it anywhere, I just kind of wrote it for myself, but I would like to share it with you guys as the end of my speech. So it is entitled The Ride. I went too fast, I was too much. I was embarrassed because I didn't know what I was. I didn't know how to get off the ride. It had never occurred to me that maybe I was the ride. How do you push the stop button on something intrinsically going, moving, and speeding? Then I realized, you don't. You allow it to continue its path, trusting that it will take you where you are meant to slow down and stay, where you can finally be. It is there that your purpose awaits. You are not meant to brace yourself for the bumps and hurdles and pit stops. You are meant to embrace them. Lean into them and feel them entirely. Let them bruise and scar and wound you. Abandon all Band-Aids. After all, Band-Aids are temporary. They are a shield between what is raw in you and what you are meant to feel. Plant your feet in the sand on the beach, breathing the beauty of the ocean into your lungs while the salty air stings all of the places that remain unhealed. Let your pain look ugly to those with no cracks, because those blemishes do not serve as reminders of imperfection. They are undeniable proof that by showing up and taking hits, you are incapable of breaking, and you are here. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for being here today and in general. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, Emmy, for joining us today, sharing your story. I just want to say, acknowledge your imposter syndrome. You are not an imposter. You very much deserve to be here. I've had personal conversations with several of the other speakers today and talk about similar things that they don't feel like they deserve to be here. They all very much deserve to be here to share their inspiring stories. So thank you. We have 2 more speakers coming up today, one at 2 p.m. and one at 3 p.m.